Welcome to Ike's Flame. Join us on another Star Wars adventure. Punch it, Chewie. Hey friends, Ike's Flame here again, and we're gonna get back at it with part two of our interview with Avela. And like I said last time, we got some fun stuff coming. So check it out. See what's up with this interview and the cosplaying that Avela is doing, and the specific design to her character and the imagination she uses. I think is super awesome. So stay tuned as we talk about that here and enjoy part two of this interview. So I know we talked about like different things like video games, books, and all this stuff. So when you think of like Star Wars, this is gonna be a little deeper question, but when you think of Star Wars, what makes Star Wars for you? Like what is Star Wars like? If you don't have this element, like it doesn't feel like Star Wars.
Yeah, that's a very good question. I'm not sure. I've been thinking about this a lot because like I don't like the sequels all too much. I don't like
Mm-hmm.
that era of Star Wars.
Yeah.
And I was thinking a lot like what is it that makes it not feel the same?
Mm-hmm.
And I think I came to the conclusion that it also comes down to, I mean, it's the world building, right? It's like everything from how the planets look, how the costumes look, and the species. Like the sequels have so many random new species that we don't know. There's
Yeah.
no Twi'leks, there's no Rhodians or Quarrens
Mm.
on any of the OT ones or
Yeah.
prequel
Yeah.
ones.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then just sort of, I think the sense of everything like tying together in a way
Mm.
where the sequels completely ignored the prequels, for example. They kind of were like, okay, we are gonna just say that those didn't happen. We're just gonna focus on OT, and
Yeah.
you have to sort of like everything exists in the same universe.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I don't know. It's a very good question because it all comes down to just sort of a feeling, I guess,
Yeah. Yeah.
of just the vibe of Star Wars and how do you
Yeah.
nail
Yeah.
that? I don't know. And
Yeah.
I think with the new shows, like Ahsoka was close but didn't quite get there. But I think The Mandalorian, especially the first season, like with all the new designs, like the
Yeah.
Razor Crest and all of those, they still feel so Star Wars.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's impressive. And Rogue One, for example, feels very, very Star Wars.
Yeah.
All the new designs are super good.
Yeah.
But I don't know what makes Star Wars, but it's there's so much like so many elements that need to be just right.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Yeah. Just kind of that um yeah, those elements like you mentioned, just the ship designs and the costumes and all that goes into that, and just those feelings of like, and I know we kind of mentioned this earlier, but just even that like mystery, I guess, of like
Yeah,
what Star Wars is,
yeah,
yeah,
it's
definitely.
kind of a combination of the sort of realness and grittiness that you get like from the war stuff, but
Yeah.
then there's this mysticism from the Force and the Jedi, and it's sort of
Yeah.
a very unique and special combination, I think.
Yeah, yeah, and kind of the fact that it's sci-fi and all that.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. So one last question, and then we'll dive into kind of your cosplay and all that stuff. And um, I don't know. I know you can answer this how you want. You can answer it with as much detail or as little detail as you want. And I don't know what your background is, but I always find this question so interesting for different people with different perspectives. Um, but with the Force specifically, and kind of like this mystery that we kind of talked about with Star Wars, like there seems to be a spiritual aspect to Star Wars in some ways. So do you have any like for you, is there like a connection that you ever make with Star Wars when it comes to spirituality? And like I said, I don't know your background or where that comes from, so answer it how you want or how you're comfortable. But like, is there any of that comes from Star Wars for you?
Yeah, I mean, I myself am a Christian, so
Okay.
that that I can definitely see the parallels there with
Yeah. Yeah.
the themes of hope and redemption
Hmm.
and this kind of just many of the core ideas of Star Wars
Yeah, definitely.
are very similar. So I think that also adds to why Star Wars is so important to me.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, awesome. Yeah, I appreciate that. I appreciate you answering that. Yeah, and I just always find it fascinating. I've talked to different people who are um, Christian and other religions as well, and I just always find it interesting how, and even people who aren't religious, just how they connect to Star Wars in a spiritual
Yeah.
sense as well. I always find that interesting. So yeah, that's awesome. I appreciate you sharing that. So. Let's dive into cosplay. I
All right.
know what do you love about cosplay? What are some of your favorite things? And I'll just let you run with it.
Yeah, well, it still feels weird to be like categorized as a cosplayer since it's so like new to me
Yeah.
since the costume was only finished a couple months back. But I mean, really, I think my favorite part so far has been just to see the like process and to be
Yeah.
able to be like, I made that, like I'm
Yeah.
able to do
Yeah.
something
Yeah.
like this. Yeah.
Yeah. That's awesome. Um, so what character, just so everyone knows, have you cosplayed?
Yeah, so my cosplay is a Mandalorian. It's an original character, so original
Okay.
paint job, and yeah, just the armor itself is pretty much a mix between like Bo-Katan Clone Wars
Hmm.
animated and like Django or that era of
Yeah.
Mandalorians.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely. I would, yeah, kind of, as think about it, like just kind of it gives me, yeah, kind of that Clone Wars Bo-Katan feel, even like Siege of Mandalore, type
Yeah.
of, yeah, like that area, and that feel. Um, so can you like walk us through the process of like how you're like, hey, this is how I came up with this idea to finding the materials to putting it all together. Like, what was that like for you?
Yeah, so the entire process for me took a bit over 1.5 years. And I mean, the reason why I initially started was because I mean, I've always loved Mandalorians. That's been one of my favorite parts
Yeah.
of Star Wars. And then I was in the beginning of 2022, I was kind of feeling a bit like sad or, not that great. So then I just
Yeah.
felt like I need a reason to just to make myself more motivated in life
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
general. So then I was like, okay, let's do it. I'm gonna make a Mandalorian. And I mean, at that point, I didn't know what I was doing. I just
Yeah.
ordered a
Yeah.
3D printed helmet, and then I was like, okay, I guess I need to do something now because I bought this helmet.
Yeah.
So that's pretty much how it started. And I documented the entire process. I'm making a video I'm going to put on YouTube later in or next January, actually. But
Awesome.
yeah, so everything is documented, so people can watch that eventually. But shortly, the like beginning of the process, pretty much the gathering all the materials that took really really long for me because
Yeah.
since I live in Finland, we don't have all the stuff that
Okay.
you have in America, and then
Yeah.
all the like sources, people are always talking about this and that, and then you're like, okay, that's a brand that doesn't exist here. Like, what am I
Yeah.
supposed to do?
Yeah.
So it took really long to find like the right materials and stuff.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that took
Definitely.
like a year almost, I think,
Okay.
to find
Okay.
everything.
Wow. That's interesting. Um, so would it take just longer, um, just to ship things, or was it just actually harder to find
Yeah,
things to buy,
I
or
think
both?
both. Yeah,
Okay.
both. I mean, I
Okay.
my helmet, I waited 3 months for that.
Okay.
Some other stuff also waited months, and then yeah, just like finding the right materials. It's
Yeah.
yeah, pretty difficult. So
Yeah. So there was you were definitely persistent in your finding everything and getting everything put together. So yeah, that's awesome. And like as you got to the point where you, because you said it took a year and a half, kind of from start to finish, as
yeah,
you wandered into it. And I think most of us that do podcasting or cosplay or YouTubing or all that stuff, I know especially in the Star Wars realm, most of us kind of did what you said, like, hey, we ordered something and then we decided, hey, we
Yeah.
should do something with it. Like I bought my podcast mic and all that stuff set up, and then I
Yeah.
was like, I should do something with this. And so it's always kind of that adventure of figuring out how to do that. So with that said, like as you got to the end and you kind of finished it, it like how is that like what's that kind of felt like be able to like be like, okay, I finally got this done, and it's kind of been a long project of figuring all that out.
It was, I mean, super rewarding, first of all, to after all the like things that went wrong and then just getting over all the obstacles and things, it was just, yeah, super rewarding. But then at the same time, I was like, okay, I'm not gonna make anything like this in a while. Like, I need a
Yeah,
break.
yeah. A lot of work, sounds like.
Yes.
And so I'm curious, and I didn't realize this. So you have, so you said this was kind of like a specific character that you've made, and that's a Mandalorian. So do you have any like, is there a specific, is Avela your specific name for that character? Is that what you're,
No, actually, she
or
has a different name.
okay, so like, kind of explain to me like what's the name and like is there any background to this character that you've
Yeah.
had made up?
Yeah, so the name of the character is Arla Sampo. I
Okay,
tried to come up with something that sounds kind of Mandalorian, and then I have a full backstory for her. I'm gonna also later make a YouTube video on like explaining all that, but
okay,
the short version is that she's from the planet of Kalevala,
okay.
and then her family got killed, like usually happens with Star Wars characters. Tragic
Yeah,
story. Family got killed because they were opposing the government, and then she fled to Coruscant, and then later came back to her home and tried to just survive in the universe, sort of without that support network. That's
okay.
essentially the beginning of the story
Yeah.
that I have so far.
Awesome. That's awesome. And so you're going to do a YouTube video. I know you mentioned
Yeah.
a YouTube video of like kind of putting the costume together, but also you're going to do another one for like kind of the background and
Yeah.
story of your character. That is awesome. I am, I, I think that's like really cool. I don't think I could do that, or be that creative. So I think that is, I think that's really cool. So if you guys are listening, we'll make sure, when all that comes out, we'll get those links to you guys, so you guys can go check that out, and check out, uh, all that, comes with that. So I think that's really cool. So I think like a lot of times I think of cosplay as like, hey, I'm gonna do like, for instance, like like if you like Mandalorians, I'm gonna do Bo-Katan or I'm gonna do Din Djarin or whoever. Like, so what made you think to kind of do your original character, and kind of create the story and all that goes along with that?
Well, I think it well comes down to being a very creative person, and
Yeah,
then also from all the female Mandalorians, we have like Bo-Katan and Sabine and like some of that are background Mandalorians, but I don't
yeah,
think any of them really had a design that I was like, oh, I want to make that. So then I
yeah,
just made
yeah,
something myself that I wanted to make, pretty
yeah,
much. Yeah.
yeah. That's awesome. That's really cool. And I think, yeah, I'll be eager to watch that and, dive into that. And I think I always think it's cool when we have, because I know there's different people in the Star Wars community that make like, um, short films of like original characters and things like that. I always think it's cool when people do things of that nature. And I mean, you're kind of going along in that same lines with what you're doing, and I think that's super cool. So I know you said that it was a lot of work, it was exhausting, and putting everything together, and that you need a break. But had you thought about, any like in the future, like, your next, character or anything that you would want to eventually cosplay going forward?
Yeah, I think the next one is going to be a Shadow Scout Trooper because I
Oh,
love the design of the Scout Troopers, but I
yeah,
also love the Shadow Troopers. So then I'm
yeah.
gonna combine those two, and yeah, I would also love to join the 501st. We have a Legion here in Finland also, to be
Okay,
part of
awesome.
like charity in the name of Star Wars, sort of.
Yeah, yeah, that'd be awesome. Yeah, I know some guys that do 501st and some families that do it together. That is a great thing. And so, yeah, that is always fun. And I think it's always fun to see all them doing things together and getting together and doing what they do. And also kind of fun just when you see a bunch of random Star Wars people wandering around. And you're like, what are they doing? For
Yeah.
me, it's exciting. Other people probably think it's weird, but so yeah, that's awesome. And doing that. So have you gone to any like Comic Cons or anything like that, or is that something that's like kind of like, hey, I want to eventually get there and on your bucket list?
Yeah, well, the problem is that in Finland we don't really have
Okay, you guys don't
those
have.
types of conventions.
Yeah,
We
yeah.
have more like anime conventions and things like that.
Okay,
But I mean, it's not Star Wars. But
yeah,
actually, next year I'm going to go with my boyfriend. He's from Germany, so we're going to go to Germany to a convention next year because they have a lot of Star Wars conventions there.
yeah.
And yeah, hopefully in the future I'll be able to go on more. And I mean, I was at Star Wars Celebration earlier this year, but at that point my costume wasn't done. So
Okay. So
yeah,
you made
something
it
like
down
that would be
to
awesome.
London for Star
Yep.
Wars Celebration. That's awesome. That was um I would love to eventually go to Star Wars Celebration. So I've never been, but that's awesome that you could make that. I mean, on that point, as we maybe even as we wrap up here, what like uh, what was some of your favorite stuff from Star Wars Celebration?
I mean, honestly, it was mainly just the people and the atmosphere. I mean, you're
Yeah,
surrounded by people that love Star Wars. Like,
yeah,
that's just the dream, pretty much.
yeah,
Like, if you're just queuing somewhere, you can just start talking to someone about Star Wars. Like,
yeah,
who wouldn't love that? So
yeah,
I think that's
exactly.
the main part. And also then meeting some of my friends from the US that I've
Okay,
met through Star Wars,
yeah,
and they also flew out there. And yeah, just meeting them in real life and being like, we're already so good friends, but actually seeing each other in real life was just really special.
yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, yeah, and I think that that's so cool. I know we've been talking about this earlier, but just I love how Star Wars brings people together.
Yes.
And the fact that like you had all those celebrities there and like everything, but like part of like one of the best things is just the community
Yeah.
around Star Wars. I think that's so cool. And I know for me, I don't I play called Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes. It's a mobile game. I don't know if you're
Yeah, I've heard
familiar
of
with.
it. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but like, I've just always been impressed, like the community, even around that specific game, and some of these Star Wars communities that come together and like that raise money for a certain need or GoFundMe or someone's passed away, and it's just like I just feel like that's so unique to see things like that happen, and it's super cool to be able to be a part of that. And so, but yeah, that's a lot of fun. So yeah, that's awesome. And I bet that was yeah, kind of bucket list to be able to go to Star Wars Celebration.
Yeah.
So I was kind of sad that is the next one not till like 2025. Like
Yeah, in
that,
Japan.
yeah, I was like that's seems like that's too far away. That seems like 3 years seems like a long time.
Yeah.
So or 2 years or whatever that is. But so yeah, awesome. So anything else that you want to share that you're like, hey, like if we're talking about Star Wars, I need to talk about this. Or as we end here.
I mean, I don't know, other than, I guess, connecting to the part of like how Star Wars brings people together. I mean, I met my boyfriend through Star Wars,
Okay.
and I mean, he's from Germany and I'm from Finland, so we have an ocean between us, but now a year later we live together, and like I'm just so grateful that Star Wars could,
Yeah.
help us like find each other. That's like
Yeah.
just so crazy how like Star Wars can just connect people from all over the
Mhm.
world. I mean, you're
Yeah.
from the US, I'm in Finland, and we're
Yeah.
just able to talk about Star Wars like this. I think is so wonderful.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. That's awesome. Yeah, yeah, I completely agree 100% on that. Just the way that brings people together, and I've heard a lot of stories like Sounds like you and your boyfriend, and like you mentioned, like going to Celebration, like you're like you've talked to these people in the U.S. and then you
Yeah.
finally get to meet them, and like I feel like I've heard a lot of stories of that, of like people connecting over Star Wars, and then they get to meet years later or whatever in person,
Yeah.
and I just think that's so cool. So yeah, that's awesome, definitely. And I think that just goes to show, like if you guys are listening, we got a great community. We got great, like Star Wars is a great community to be part of, and to be able to connect with others in that way. So yeah, so awesome. Thanks for coming on and being a part of our podcast here at Ice Flame. It's been great having you and just loving. I think the other thing I love, and part of the reason I love talking to people that do cosplay or other, like I don't do cosplay, but I love the books, I love the movies. Like it's fun talking to other people that do other types of Star Wars nerdy things,
Yeah.
and be able to chat about that and learn about like kind of your experience with Star Wars. And I just love being able to help share other people's Star Wars story and to be a part of that. It's just always fun. So thanks for coming on and being a part of our community here at I Explain.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, you are welcome. And like I said, if you guys are listening, we will get her YouTube channel and those videos linked, and Instagram and all that linked, so that way you guys can go check out what Avela is doing and support her and all that she has going on with cosplay and just loving Star Wars. So make sure when you guys find the link, go check those out. And click on those, so and support her. So awesome. Thanks for coming on, and we'll see you guys later. Hey friends, I hope you enjoyed part two of my interview with Avela and talked about her cosplaying and all that she does. Make sure to go check out her YouTube video. Check her out on YouTube and on socials. All that stuff will be in the description below and the link below. Go check that out and support her, as she's doing some pretty awesome stuff. And I really had enjoyed this conversation with her, and I hope you guys did as well. And as we always like to say here on Ike's Flame, light the fire.